Peekaboo, you shiny crafty people. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Tim Totten, and today we are making a peekaboo origami style mask. This is the version I made for adults. Fits my face. Isn't that cute? It's actually reversible. Really sweet, so I could change it to the red side if I wanted, and you'll notice it kind of goes peekaboo, peekaboo, right? And we're gonna make this child-size version today. So please come over to the cutting table and I'll show you what we need for this super simple mask that you can make in just minutes. All right, follow me. All right, as always, we're gonna need something to measure with. I use that acrylic grid. I'm gonna need something to cut with. I like a rotary cutter. Of course, you will still need some scissors, or you can use scissors in place of the rotary cutter. I will need a couple pieces of elastic. These are actually made out of a hair tie, a real soft, elasticy hair tie. And for the kid size, they're about 6 inches long. I'm gonna need some type of lovely, pretty fabric that has a nice design. I love those little cupcakes. And then I'm gonna find a color that goes with it, this cute brown fabric. And there we go, everything that you need. So let's get started. The child size is gonna be 7 3/4 inches wide by 6 3/4 inches tall. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this other piece of fabric the same size. And I'm gonna see if I have a line already. You know, I think I'll really quick steam this. It's an important thing to know. A lot of people will go ahead and pre-wash their quilting fabrics. So if I were quilting something, I would definitely want to pre-wash all of the fabrics. And then something like this is gonna be relatively small. I might or might not pre-wash the fabrics, but I'll use my cutting implements here, the grid, and I wanna get a nice squared up side. So I'll come in here. I'm not worried about the grid lines at the bottom matching. I'll get that straightened on that edge. So that fabric is now straight on that edge. And then I need to create another straight line. So I'm gonna come in here and line up one of the lines on the ruler with the bottom of that material. And this is a scrap piece, so I'm not really worried about saving any, but I'll have that there. And then now when I cut up the side, it'll be square. We'll have a square side here. This is now 90 degrees. All right, what I'm gonna do next is use one of those sides that I now know is 90 degrees and line up the 7 3/4 inch side here. That's along here. Here's a 7 3/4 inch line. I'm lining it up, and I'm gonna make sure I line up that bottom line too. So I sort of bring it to a corner. On this ruler, it happens to be at 8 and then at 7 3/4. So I know that now that is square here as well. And I'll create the third side that is now straight. Now that I have 7 3/4 this way, I need the 6 3/4 going up and down. So I'll turn it again, knowing now that these are my two 90-degree squares. I'll put it now at 6 3/4. And that's actually pretty easy to find, because what I do is I look for 7 along the edge, and then I just go over a 1/4 inch. And now up the side, pull the fabric away. And when I put these two with each other, they should be the same size. Wow, look at that. All right, now what I need to do is sew these right sides together along one edge. And I'm gonna think of the top edge. And since this is a directional fabric, which I can still kind of see through, the top edge is up there. So I'm gonna sew along there with about a 3/8 inch seam. So let's go over to the sewing machine and show you what that looks like. And what we're gonna do is basically sew this edge right here. That's what we're working on. So I'm gonna use a 3/8 inch seam. It's a little bit wider than a 1/4 inch seam. A 1/4 inch seam would be basically a 2/8 seam. So I'm gonna sew a 3/8 seam, and I'm using about a 2 on my stitch length. So if you look at the presser foot, you'll notice a little bit of fabric comes out the other side. That's because a 3/8 inch seam is a little bit wider than my 1/4 inch presser foot. I'm gonna back up at the end there just to tack it in, and I'll put my needle in the down position. If you have that ability on your machine, definitely use it. Now you could pin this as well. I don't, because I do a lot of sewing, so I'm not too worried about it. I feel pretty comfortable with how well it's gonna go through. And now I have my seam stitched there, and I can open this up, and we'll go over to the ironing board and show you the next step. the next step is going to be that we're gonna work on this edge. So we're gonna open up our seam and iron it through. And really the best way is to go ahead and set the actual seam with your iron. So I bring the iron on, and I use lots of steam, and then I'm gonna peel back all of that, put the iron down below it, and iron it open. And actually here, because I really want this to be available in a minute, you'll see why, I'm gonna come back and push all of that from the wrong side back down again to the other side. And in fact, I could go in and split this open if I felt like it and iron it out. So I'm gonna do that just because it'll make it a little easier in a little bit when we're gonna fold this. So now that finds where our center line is there along our mask. Our next goal is to take each of the two ends here, this end and this end, and fold them in both 1/4 of an inch and then 1/4 inch again to create a nice seam in there so that we have sort of a finished edge so that if you want to put in a pocket, you can. What we're gonna do is, you could just eyeball 1/4 an inch if you wanted, but that's pretty tight and small and you might burn your finger. So what I've done is taken a piece of paper and just drawn a 1/4 inch line from one edge. And so if I lay that down there, I can fold my fabric over and sort of scotch it until I get it to that 1/4 inch. So basically the paper is pushing all the way into this fold of the fabric, and we're just folding the fabric just over that edge. And I can go ahead and finger press this because it's cotton fabric and it doesn't mind taking a press. But I can also come back and then just steam right over the paper. It's not going to hurt the paper at all, although it is making the paper curl a little bit. Look at that. Now, if you use cardstock for this, it wouldn't curl up as much as this did, but this is fine because I can always just iron this back out flat again. Or you could use a heavier cardstock and that would work great. Then I just want to fold this again, and in fact I can just use that line that's now there because it will naturally want to fold back, that material does. And I give it a nice finger press, just use my finger. Because it's still kind of warm, it's really holding on to that. I give it some steam. Ooh, look at that. Now it's time for me to flip it around and do the same thing with the other side. And it's just creating the bottom edge of the mask. Now you could be a little more careful with how you cut this material so that you could see those words and they won't get tied up, but I'm not as worried about it. It is going to happen. They are going to get sort of folded up into the material. And we're going to lose some of those words, but I'm not that worried about it. I wasn't being that careful. But if you are, if you've got like if you're doing a mask for a child and maybe it's one of their favorite characters, maybe you want to cut the mask so that you don't lose any of the details of like their favorite, animated character. I don't know who those might be. I don't have any children in my house, so I can't tell you. My son's 23 and he doesn't really watch, well, I guess he does watch some animated stuff. If I were making this for my son, I'd be making him something that's probably Nightmare Before Christmas because that's his favorite holiday movie. All right. So now I've done both of those. And unless you have asbestos fingers, you might want to be careful with how strong you... Ooh, that's hot, hot, hot. How hot you fold those over. And then they should, if you fold this back up, they should line up pretty well, and they do. Look at that. So to make this peekaboo sort of origami style mask, we need to figure out something about that fabric. And that is, we're going to need to separate each side into 4 sections by putting 3 lines that we add to it. And so if we opened it completely up, we would see, here it looks like with all of those pieces. Now I've just sort of drawn those lines, like here's the halfway mark, here's a 1/4 mark, here's an 1/8, you see. So what we're going to do is figure out how to fold the fabric in a way to get the sort of what we need so that we can fold all these pieces in to flip and fold. Now in origami, anytime you take a piece of paper and fold it in half and you create this sort of V shape in the middle here, that's called a valley fold. And if you see it looking from the side, it looks like a valley. It goes down in like a valley. Now, anytime you then were to do it on this side, maybe this was the top of the paper, and you put that same kind of crease in just the opposite direction, it's called a mountain, and you see it shaped like a mountain. So we're gonna make just mountain folds and valley folds. So I'm gonna show you at the iron what that looks like on our fabric. So here we have a sheet that shows you as if it was the same as this fabric here. See? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna just fold the entire thing in half and find the center, which we've done by actually making this device, making this by sewing it together. So we have the center. And then we also need to find the center of each of the two halves, okay? And the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna fold in toward the center, both of those sides, see? Okay, so let's do that here. We're gonna take this dark brown side and fold it toward the center and line it just right up at the center. And I'm gonna press with my finger, and then I'll come back with my iron and just give it a little love. Now, it's important here as you're doing this that you don't iron over any of these pleats we're gonna put in. Any of the folds we're gonna put in, because we're gonna need them later. So now I bring the other side up to the middle. And I make sure that I don't go over that seam. So I'm not trying to go over any of the seams. All right. Then I'm gonna open it back up, and that gives us, as you can see there, those two valley folds. So here are these two valley folds. So if we flip them over, they would then become mountain folds. And we will need to flip it over now. And the reason we're gonna flip it over is we now have to create the valley folds on the opposite side in between each of those. And the best way to do that is, let me show you on the paper example. We've now put in this fold here, this fold that was the center, and this fold which is the center of the other sides of the material. And I'm gonna take the top here, this side, and fold it to meet the middle of this other material. So I bring it over and I fold it down, and then that creates a valley fold. Same thing here, I'm gonna bring this over to that center one, and it creates the fold there. And the last thing I'm gonna do is fold these two edges in to create the rest of it. And I'll show you on our actual device, our actual mask. I'm gonna take this edge and fold it to the center crease that we put there. See that center crease that's now a mountain crease here? I'm gonna fold this point there. So here, and it's gonna put the crease in the middle of this. So I put that point over to that there, sort of flatten, finger press it out. Very carefully take a tiny little amount, because we don't want to lose that centerpiece. We don't want to lose that fold that's there. And now you'll notice that we have a mountain fold, a valley fold, a mountain fold here, a mountain fold, and now we do the opposite direction. So we bring the one here over to that mountain fold. We need to be very carefully use just our fingers at first, and then we'll just get just the edge, because we don't want to lose that one there. And open it up, and now look, we've got a fold here, a valley fold inside, the fold where the middle goes, a valley fold, and a mountain fold. And the last fold I need is from this edge to the center of that one. Again, don't worry, but don't lose your place. And then I need to do the other one into that center. Finger press it, bring your iron around. Now that may seem like a whole lot of work just to get a bunch of folds. And you're basically getting valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley, mountain, valley. But here's why that's important. We're gonna flip the entire thing over. It might be easier to see some of those here. And then I'm gonna grab this, what's now a mountain fold, and bring it to the center into that valley. See how that's now shortened that up? And it's creating some more folds underneath. And I just give it a little bit of steam without losing this mountain. Then I bring that mountain up and over to meet the other one in the center. And can you see what we're forming here? We're forming that. We're forming this here in the middle right there. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to bring this down to the center, to where that centerpiece is. That valley fold in the middle, so I just moved the mountain fold to the valley, and the same thing here below. I'm going to take this mountain fold that's here. Don't worry about that folding underneath. We'll get that in a minute. And come up to meet the other mountain fold that met in the middle. Tuck everything and make sure we're still getting everything correct. And if you have the same thing that just happened to me here where it sort of started coming apart, we can adjust that. And I steam everything like crazy. Now here, if you use clips, this would be a good place for you to come in and clip all this together. But I want to show you what it looks like now on the other side. See what it's now looking like on the other side. Isn't that cool? This is where it's those interior flips that are folded in there. All right, our next step is to fold it right sides together. So I'm going to flip it back over to the other side. And I'm going to bring this, no, wait, we got to put the elastic in. Oh, I almost forgot. Thank you for reminding me. I've got to get those two pieces of elastic because those have to go in, right? And one's going to go in this direction over here, right? And the other's going to go in this direction here. Now, I don't like to put them right to the corners. You'll see here on the sample one we did, I like to bring them in just a little bit so I don't have to have so much bulk in those corners as I turn them. So I'm going to grab some pins. I forgot to tell you earlier that you're going to need some pins. And I'm going to pin those in here. So I leave it a little bit off that center line that we're going to be folding in a minute. And it should be noted that I am doing this on a cutting board, or on a, not on a cutting board, on a ironing board, which means that I'm going to probably pin right through my fabric of my ironing board in a minute if I'm not careful. So I will go in and then sort of pull up and then do it. And I might want to throw a couple pins into my folds just to make sure they don't go anywhere. So I'm going to throw one in. This is going to be fun. I'm going to go in at an angle. So I'll go in the top one and out the bottom one. See how that just held them right across? I'll do the same thing over here. I'll just go ahead and do that one before I get too far, so the folds don't go away. Make sure they stay right next to each other, but still leave it off the edge so I can find it. All right, same thing. I'll do that actually for all of these where there is a fold, because I don't want to lose any of these. There we go. And the last one up here, I will put it in. I really just don't want to lose those folds that I worked so hard to get in there. All right, last one of these. I will put it about 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, somewhere in there, outside of that, and just pin it in place. Try not to shove it through my own finger. And same thing here. Whew. I don't know how many injuries you've had from sewing, but I could catalog, probably just look at my hands and you could find all of the injuries that I've had. It's crazy. All right, last thing we're gonna do is flip this thing closed right along that seam where it was. And then I can, move some of these pins if I wanted to, or add some pins. And so I probably will actually add 1 or 2 pins just to make sure it's all accurate. So I'll take one of these pins out. You'll see this pin. I'll take it out and put it through. Now all of those, it's going through both sides. And I'll take the other angled one out and put it back through. So now that's holding all those together. And I'll do the same thing on this other side. So really, a pin strategy is just whatever's going to help you keep everything together so that it doesn't move. All right, perfection. Let's go over to the machine and sew this bad boy. Now what I need to do is I need to get you where you can see it. I'm going to sew along each edge of this, each side. And I want to sort of get those things lined up properly. So I'm going to come in here and make sure that everything's lining up as I sew it. All right, and I'm going to use a little bit wider, that 3/8 inch seam allowance, and make sure I back up. And then I really want to make sure that as I'm taking my pins out, that I'm also making sure that these pleats stay in here where they're supposed to be. I don't want to lose those. So that seems to have worked. Pull the other pin out. Now I'll tell you, there are videos of me in the world on this YouTube channel where I'm sewing over pins, and I've had enough people kind of tell me that they think that's a terrible idea and I shouldn't be teaching that to anyone else. So I'm going to begin teaching that you should always remove your pins. Now, that having been said, you're going to see me not remove pins in the past, and I'm just going to say, please forgive that. It's a better plan for you to remove the pins, really. It's pretty dangerous to sew over them. It's not great for your machine either. And my excuse has always been that I've done this for 30 years, and I also have a sewing machine repair man that comes in every single month to our workshop, but not everyone has that. So I'm going to go back and sort of go back over each side, because I want to make sure that that elastic is really stuck in there. You know, you never know how people are going to use... Oh, I just lost the thread. You never know how people are going to use a mask that you make, you know? And I would really, really hate to have a mask break on somebody because I didn't make it super strong. Because the reality is everyone's different, and you can't expect them to treat something that you've created perfectly. And so I try to assume that everyone is just as rough and tumble as I am. Don't watch this. I'm eating the thread to make sure it's biting the end off. You know, the older I get, the harder it is to get it through the needle, you know? Like, it's harder to get it to line up. That one worked actually pretty quickly, though. I just kind of sort of have to guess where it's going. All right, so I'm going to sew this last little bit, and then we'll look at the actual piece. All right, so here we go. I have now finished sewing three sides, the two sides, the one side that was already done at the beginning, and then those two sides now, which leaves us one completely open side, which makes it easy for you to turn it. Now, the great part about this is it also means you could, because we've finished these edges, you could come along and just stitch those edges closed. You could run your stitch right along that and stitch that each side closed from the beginning, and then you could just leave it open as for a filter. Or you can come back here and just stitch a little section of each one separately, and then when you turn it, you can stitch to those edges and then leave an opening for a filter pocket. I will tell you, I don't expect children to change out filters, and honestly, when I use a mask, it's to keep me from spitting out onto other people, which the fabric does on its own, so I don't usually put in a filter. You can, though, if you want to on this mask design. So, fun part now is we're going to turn this inside out. And you could go in and clip these corners if you wanted to. In fact, I will do that, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Basically, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to clip each of those corners. And you can go straight across if you choose to, or you can go in a little more of a stronger. Now, you don't want to clip this corner, by the way, because this one hasn't been finished yet. But I'm going to clip that other corner. So now those both are clipped. This corner here and this corner at the bottom. Let's turn the whole thing inside out. And you can use the elastic to help you pull it. And then I'm going to get something to turn this with. And of course I didn't bring my turner over here. But I will tell you, I've got scissors, right? Oh, I've got scissors or a seam ripper or a pen. No, don't ever do that. Do not turn with that. I'm going to get one of our turners. Now, I've said it in other videos, but a turner can be either wood or plastic, or you can do metal. I know some people use chopsticks, which sounds totally cool. Like, wouldn't that be cool to use chopsticks to do it? I don't have a chopsticks. So, and I haven't eaten at our local Chinese restaurant in a while. So I'm going to just use my turner. This is like from Joanne Fabrics or something. And I'm going to put it inside and put that point down to the point here and just push it out. Now, the reason you don't want to use a pair of scissors or a pen is people have been known to push right through that corner. Not a good plan. So again, I go to the edge there and push it out, ready to go. Now I have, and you can see the peekaboo effect is going to start. And now all we have left to do is stitch along this edge and all the way around the entire thing. So let's look at that on the machine. I am going to pull that thread there. I'm going to go from this side where it's a little bit overlapped. You know what? Hopefully you're giving this to people who don't care about how bad your sewing might be. And I'm going to use just the width of the presser foot and just go all the way down. Now remember, you could have left that open if you wanted to put in a place for a filter. Create your own filter pocket. And I'm just going to keep going around using the width of the presser foot as my 1/4 inch. I also want to look here and make sure that it caught all of that, you know, because remember we had turned in a 1/4 inch twice, and it did beautifully. And oh my goodness, that means it's done. Our cute little peekaboo is finished. Isn't that amazing? Here you are. Let me show you what it looks like finished, and I'll even try to put it on my face. Oh look, cute little cupcakes. So if I put this on and put the ears on, and then pop it open, look at the cupcakes pop open. Now this is obviously the child size, but I did make my adult size, which is over here. You'll see it's a lot bigger. This is sort of my size, adult size. And we're gonna put the sizing down in the description for you so you can look at them. So here's the 2 different sizes. And of course it's reversible. So if you want the brown side or if you want the cupcake side, you could easily also have added a wire into the nose area so you could make it easier to go. But look at that. I mean, I made one of these the other day in like 8 minutes. That's how fast you can do them once you really get moving on all that origami. It is the Peekaboo Origami Style Face Mask. Perfect for children, people who don't wear glasses, or you can adjust it for all the other things you want to add to it. So stay tuned here to the channel for the next time that we get crafty. I'm Tim Totten. Please like, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button because it really helps this video get seen by other people, helps with the YouTube channel. Until next time, stay crafty. Bye for now.